Hi, this is Monty from Mopart Vehicles, and here's another one of our detailed vehicle appraisals. Now, this is not the kind of car that we'll tend to have advertised on our website, and all my cars will tend to have a video, and I wanted to do exactly the same with this. Now, most of my videos do tend to take about sort of 8-10 minutes long, just giving you a more detailed view on a car, so you don't have any wasted journeys to come down and have a look at one. Now, this one's probably going to take a bit longer. As I mentioned, it's not the kind of car that we'll tend to sell. It's a 41-year-old MGB GT. Okay, so I'm going to briefly walk around the car and give you a more detailed view very shortly and tell you a bit about the car. So, for the ones that know about MGBs and really going to be looking for this car, or even if you're, in your sort of 40s, 50s, older, who know about older cars, will notice that this vehicle has got chrome bumpers on it. It has been modified. So it originally was a rubber bumper model, but it's been modified to the chrome bumpers. Now, this was done, well, all of this work that you see, paint work, a lot of the shots that I'll show you when I take the wheels off and show you pictures from underneath the car, etc., were all completed by the current owner, or I say current owner, previous owner, because we've now just recently bought the vehicle from him. Now, he's, as I mentioned, he's done all of the work, or most of the work that you see here. He's actually in the motor industry, and again, in terms of the cost or anything like that, he probably spent about, in terms of parts, probably about £3,500–4,000 on parts, but obviously labour, it was all the bits and pieces that he done himself. Now, the reasons why I kept the camera on the number plate is please feel free to do any checks on the car, in terms of history, if you're in the know, who you need to speak to, etc., that type of thing, and they may tell you a bit about the car. You can check mileages, that type of thing. So I am in a public park, so I do apologise. I may have to pause the video a couple of times and restart it. It's not me doing anything dodgy, it's just where maybe people are walking past, dogs, that type of thing, joggers. Now, we have just started to get a bit of rain, just a few little spots here and there, nothing major, but it shouldn't really affect the way we're going to get this video done for you. Now, I did have this car advertised for a few days, and I needed to take it off again and just do a few little checks, and I'll tell you the reasons behind that, because even though the car does look lovely, it's not all good. There are some bad things that I obviously want to tell you about this car as well, but I'll do it as I go through the video. So you'll notice that this car's got this kind of deeper front spoiler. I believe that came, look, I'm not a purist on these cars, so if I'm wrong I do apologise, but I believe that was off the V8 model. Now, this rubber bumper car, originally a rubber bumper car, wouldn't have had an oil cooler installed. The oil cooler sits right at the bottom behind the number plate, and the rubber bumpers would have been in the way, and I don't think the oil cooler worked that well. So what he's basically done is put that spoiler on there, so you can actually, it sort of directs the air to the oil cooler, which is, I believe you might be able to see it. There we go, it's just up there. Okay, and I will have some pictures and more shots of underneath the vehicle as well. So it's just started to rain a bit harder now, so that's not great. So I've tried to go under some of the trees. As you can probably see, there's still some sort of dry sections along the road. Anyway, so let's carry on, stop this babbling. So I'm going to try and show you the side of the car going down. Now, it's probably going to be better coming from the back to the front to try and give you some sort of reflections. Look, this car got painted 9 years ago after a lot of this work, or when he first started doing a lot of work on the car. So it's not going to be a brand new car. Please, please, please do not think it's going to be a brand new car. But it has been dry stored. For that 10 years he's owned the car, it's been dry stored with a cover on it. Okay, and now we've got rain, and it hasn't seen any rain for 10 years. So it's going to come straight from here and back into the garage and get it all covered over. Now, this is a 4-speed manual with overdrive for third and fourth, and they work absolutely fine. Nice and smooth, no clonking as it goes into it. Hopefully you can try and pick that all up. It's in really good condition, because all of this was upholstered, all the carpets, everything at the same sort of time. I mean, he's been doing it on and off for the last 10 years, and there is a genuine reason for the sale of the car, and I'll tell you all about that very shortly. Now, a couple of bits and pieces I've noticed in terms of, let's close that again. There's a couple of little bits of, it looks like starting to bubble up on here, maybe a bit of rust or something like that. One of the things that is a bit annoying is some of the seals. You've got a little bit of the paint there again. You know, you would have thought you'd have had the windows out when you painted it, but obviously they didn't do that. So a little bit bubbling up coming up on that wing there. All the tyres are in really good nick, everything like that. The chrome work is in fantastic condition. Now I'm going to show you in the boot. Now, a couple of people asked me about the boot area. Let me just take the jack out. The jack was actually in the floor area. I'll show you where it was. So there we go. Now, of course, this car would have had some welding done, and then it's been covered over with under seal. You know, it's to be expected. Your spare wheel there. These little red dots there is where the jack was in the boot and just rattling around. Close that down. Let's put the jack back in that corner there for the moment. And what I'll try and do is I'll try and get down and show you some views from under the car. Petrol tank there, it's sort of like a zinc coating to it, but hopefully you can try and pick up some of them views under there. Yes, some of the purists are going to go, oh, they're not the right nut and bolts and things like that. It's just one of those things really, guys. If this was in concourse condition with lots and lots of history and things like that, I've seen them going for £25,000 and more, and we're not asking anywhere near this for this car. As I've put in the advert, 95% of the work has all been done, all complete. Okay, apologies, you've got a few little roan spots on there. Now you've got a couple of little dents along here, but again, nothing major. I mean, these cars, when they come out in 1977, had dents in them, I think, to be fair. And hopefully you can try and pick this all up as well. As I said, there's going to be some shots. It's got all these like stainless steel trims that go underneath inside the wheel arches. You can probably see all the, don't know if you can or not, you can see the reflections of the tyres there. Anyway, let's just show you the passenger side. Show you under there, and that's where your bonnet pull is. All the carpets. All of the seats. All the seats all work. All the lights work. The heater even works. There's an external switch here for an extra fan, and that's outside there. To be fair, I've probably sat in this car a couple of times, and one time I think I sat in a bit of traffic for about 35 minutes, didn't overheat one bit. Apologies, actually, I was going to open up the bonnet. There. Right, let's open her up. Okay, so you can see a lot of stuff in here is new. You've got this kind of Ken Lowy kind of fan. Car runs lovely. Well, I say run lovely, I'll tell you a bit about that as well. As it's been sat around for about 10 years and has done only about 700 miles, and a lot of that time, believe it or not, a lot of stop starting, didn't really go far. I would say the carburetors definitely need probably stripping down and tuning up. I'm no SU carburetor specialist, but I've done my best to try and play around with it. I'd probably say it's running maybe a little bit lean, because if you pull the choke out fractionally as you're driving, it feels to pull a lot stronger. So in my opinion, it probably run a bit lean, but that's going to be some experts going to have a look at that. Now, in terms of chassis number's here. and then what you'll have on this side here is a commission number. Now that commission number is not the same as the chassis number. I've been in touch with the Heritage Motor Museum to try and get them to verify bits and pieces, and they can tell me a little information, but without me sort of like paying extra money and getting someone to physically go and check everything. They stopped marrying up the commission number and the chassis number back in about 1974. This is 77. So what they've said to me is, you know, by all means come down and bring all your bits and pieces and sit down and go through all the archives and have a look at it, and you can try and get some information in terms of, you know, who originally ordered the car, that type of thing, etc. Now this engine number was an engine that was changed up with the information we got in 2001. So this is where some of the negative bits and pieces that I need to tell you about the car. Now the mileage on the car recorded on here is 22,000. Now VOSA or an MOT check I think went up to 2007, normally about 10-11 years, and at that sort of time, this is just before the current owner or previous owner just bought it, it had 21,000 miles on the clock. Current owner for 10 years, etc., only done about 700 miles in the car. So we've gone a bit further back. Someone else has asked us, and we've gone a bit further back. We actually found out in 1999 this particular car had 53,000 miles on the clock. The other information that we can ascertain is this engine, or this engine number, came out of a was for a 1977 vehicle. And was fitted in 2001. Now what we are led to believe is that the speedo or the mileage was either a new speedo was fitted in the car in 2001 at 0 miles, and hence when my friend who bought the car, he bought it in 2000, late 2007, 2008, it had 21,000 miles. We believe, again, we need to probably try and verify, or you can verify if you're interested in the car. We believe it probably done that 21,000 miles from 2001 to 2007. So altogether, we think this car is covered somewhere in the region of about 75,000. But that's what we think, 75,000 miles. We don't think it's got 122 on the clock, but again, I've done a lot of checks, lots of heritage companies that I've rung, MG owners clubs, etc., and everything is pointing to 2001. It was zeroed, and then this engine was fitted to the car. All right. Again, that particular engine number will need to be attached to the logbook, because it's got the old engine number in the logbook. And when I rung the MG owners club, they said 50% of their customers, 50% of all the owners that are registered with the MG Owners Club have got wrong engine numbers and wrong commission numbers and God knows what else. So I just wanted to tell you, be up there, up front and honest with you, because, you know, for all I know, you could be coming from America, and I've had a few phone calls about this car from America. So I don't want to try and, you know, hoodwink anybody into it, but please feel free, do as many searches as you want to. There is the registration number again. If you're in the know, ring whoever you know, and if you do know any more information about this car, please tell me, and then I can put it out there, more videos, etc. Now I know a couple of bits and pieces changed. He's sort of done master cylinder, bits and pieces like that. Now I have noticed on some cars the master cylinder isn't there, or there isn't a master cylinder. I'm not too sure if they're all servo assisted, that type of thing. All new fluid in there, he changed wheel cylinders, etc., that type of thing. But everything else in here looks absolutely great. I just wanted to try and show you other areas so you can see there's nothing in terms of rot. Okay. And as I mentioned, this car runs really well, has no problems in like overheating or anything like that. And I'll just hold the camera there. Feel free if you want to do any checks with that chassis number, but I'll hold it there for a while for you. Look, I'm not intentionally trying to, you know, pull the wool over anybody's eyes. You know, it's not a concourse kind of heritage car. I mean, you're looking at some of the bolts here and things like that. Yes, the purists are going to say, well, we want to change all that. We don't want it to look like that. But we're not asking £10,000–15,000 for this car. It is up for, yes, £5,000. That's what we got it up for. Okay, I'm just going to pull the bonnet down now. So excuse me if the camera starts jiggling about. There we go. So we're up to about 15 minutes now, so apologies, but I wanted to try and give you as detailed view of the car as possible. And as I mentioned, there will be some shots with the wheels off the car. I'll try and get it on my friend's ramp so I can try and take some pictures of underneath the vehicle as well. Okay, I'm just going to go around the car one more time, just in case anything you've missed, or I've missed more importantly, on the vehicle. Oh yeah, one thing this is one thing I did forget to mention, to be fair. The MOT was recently done on the car. I have been using it, it's been absolutely fine, but I have noticed a slight knocking noise coming from either, I don't know, it's just maybe a suspension, maybe the exhaust, to be fair. It could even be the boot itself, you know, something sort of like knocking around, and I think it might be the exhaust, to be fair, because when you switch the car off, as the engine is sort of coming to a stop, you can hear it go dong dong, and I think it might be the exhaust or something like that. But I will have a look at it. But again, don't forget, this car, this poor old thing, was laid up for 10 years, 700 miles, and I think 400 or 500 of their miles were covered in about 2009, 2010, something like that. So in the last, what, 5-6 years, it's hardly done any mileage whatsoever, and it's just no good for a car like that. These cars really need to be driven. I was at the Goodwood Revival only the other week. There was loads of these up there, some ones that are in massively need of restoration. They were in bits, and they were selling for £3,000, £4,000, £5,000. Yes, they had lots and lots of history with them, etc. So that's the last bit now we come to. We're up to 17 minutes now. The history of the car. So the previous owner, current owner, whatever you want to say, the guy that had it for the last 10 years, he done all the work to the car and bought lots of this stuff from, I think I mentioned earlier, MGB Hive or something like that, etc. He had a house moved about 3.5 years ago, and he had reams of paperwork. All of the paperwork has been lost. So we've got things like logbooks, some old MOTs, things like that. But all of the bits and pieces that he got from the previous owners, the previous owners, and all the invoices for everything, from whether it's the oil cooler to the front splitter to the chrome bumpers to the tyres, the trims behind the wheel arches, everything was lost in a house move, and that's the God's honest truth. I'm more than happy to give you his phone number. You can have a chat with him, he can tell you what he's done, etc., that type of thing. That's the God's honest truth. Everything was lost in a house move. Now again, at £5,000, this car with all of this kind of providence, all this history, would be worth double that. Really, God, honestly, it would be worth double that. Because a lot of the work has been done to this car. That's why I've put in there it's 95% complete. Anyway, apologies, I've babbled on far too long now, but I'd like to thank you very much for your time. If there's anything you want to know about this car, please send me a message, email me, text me, whatever. I'll always get back to you. Thank you again, and hope to speak to you soon. Bye bye.